Good morning. Hi there, I'm Maddie Harvey from Maddie Harvey Designs. I'm a knitwear designer and knitting teacher based in Edinburgh, where it has been snowing this morning. We've had some snow on and off for the last week or so, yeah. Anyway, I like to create knitting patterns and knitting kits and online events for knitters to help them develop their creativity and confidence. And this is my weekly, Thursday morning weekly Knits and Cake for Breakfast video. So hello if you're watching live, and hello if you're watching the replay later on. I hope you're doing okay. There's a lot going on just now, isn't there? Yeah, it's been a bit of a week. So I hope that you're finding some comfort in your knitting or crocheting or some other crafting. And if not, perhaps like me, you have maybe started reading again. I found reading very difficult to concentrate on this last sort of 12 months or so, and I haven't read anything for ages and ages. And then I read a tweet which said, you know, just read a little bit, just read a couple of pages every day. And so last night I decided that I would just do that. I wasn't going to lie in bed scrolling through Twitter, which has become a habit, which is not helpful. So I chose a book that I thought looked the least kind of heavy off my shelf, which was this one, which is called We Are All Made of Glue by Marina, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, Luwicka? I'm not sure. She wrote the short history of tractors in the Ukraine, which I've read, which is really good. So I just read a couple of chapters and it was nice. I haven't read anything for ages. So yeah, if you're finding it hard to concentrate on knitting, maybe find a book that's not too heavy and just try reading a couple of pages and see how you go. Yeah, that might help. So if you haven't watched one of these videos before, the idea of them is that before the lockdown last year and everything, I was hosting a weekly knit night on a Wednesday night that I would always do some baking for. And there would be some leftover baking, and on a Thursday morning after I'd dropped my kids off at school and came back home, I would have some of the leftover baking for my breakfast. So the videos are just like a little catch up with what I've been working on this week and show you what I've been baking, because it's quite nice to keep up that habit of having some baking in the house every week. So over Christmas, I forgot to say Happy New Year. So Happy New Year. But over Christmas I got this book called The Batch Lady, which is a recipe book all about batch cooking, which I've kind of tried before, but never in a very kind of organised way. So it's been quite interesting reading this. And she has some recipes in the back for baking, batch baking, things that you can put in the freezer easily and then bake them from frozen, which is really appeals to me. So I tried the cookies. So they're chocolate chip cookies. I use white chocolate chips and they've got oats in them. So they feel like they're, you know, they're a bit healthy with the oats. And what you do is you make them and then you roll out the dough in like a big sausage and you freeze it. And then when you want to bake some, you just cut slices off and you just bake the slices. So this morning I did 6 and just put them in the oven, and it was really easy. They're quite spongy, so more of like a soft cookie than a crunchy one. She has them in the book where you have them with a scoop of ice cream in between two sandwiched together, which would be really nice, especially if the cookies were warm. I could imagine that would be really lovely. So I might try some other recipes. She's got recipes for doing like a Victoria sponge at the same time as making scones, and then bake the Victoria sponge, but cut the scones out and put them in the freezer uncooked, and then you can just take them out which again really appeals to me, because you could just do the baking when you felt in the mood for baking, because sometimes I don't, you might not feel like doing it, but you might need some baking for something, for an event, or you just feel like eating something like that, and it would be quite nice to have something in the freezer. So that's what I am having for my breakfast this morning, and I've got my cup of coffee, of course. So how have you been getting on with your first footing cowl? If you missed that last week, Claire from Cookston Crafts and myself had a little live cast on, and to start the first footing cowl, and I had picked out this yarn to knit mine in, and I cast it on and I thought, oh, it's nice, but actually I think if I did a double knit version, so the pattern comes in, you can do a full ply or a double knit version. If I do the double knit version, it will be a bit quicker and I'm more likely to have it finished, because I've already knitted two. I did the 2 samples, and I've got some other knitting, what I call work knitting, to do. And so I probably have limited time to work on this, so maybe I will do the double knit size. But I really, really wanted to use this yarn because it's a special skein that I bought at Perth Festival of Yarn in, I think, 2018, but it's got lots of nice memories of being able to go to yarn festivals and things tied up in it. So I thought, if I pair this with some mohair lace, this is the Rico mohair lace that I use in my knitting kits, then I could knit it at the double knit gauge. So I made a very small start. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, so it's not really focusing very well. So you can still see the stitches. The stitch definition is still okay, and it's got a nice kind of fuzzy glow. I think it'll be really cozy, and it'll knit up quicker, and it will only use about half of this skein. So it means that I would have a bit left over. I can maybe do a hat or perhaps some fingerless mitts. So that's what I decided to do. But if you're joining in with the first fitting cowl knit along, remember to, if you're posting pictures, use the hashtag first footing cowl, especially when you're posting a picture of your finished cowl, and then you'll be eligible for the prize draw at the end. And if you haven't got a copy of the pattern or you want to find out more, there's links in my profile to the Ravelry and Payhip, to my stores there, where you can buy the pattern or see some pictures and things. So I know I can see a couple of people on the live there who have joined in with that knit along. So it's been a really nice project, and it's nice if you look at the hashtag on Instagram, you'll see some of the projects that people have been working on. There's also a YouTube video to help with some of the fiddlier bits. It's mostly worked flat up to the neck, and then there's a little 3-needle cast off for the shoulder, and then the cowl, the sort of neck piece of it, is knitted in the round. So you could check that out as well. Now the other thing I've been working on is something for an online day knitting retreat that I'm hosting at the end of February. So I hosted one at the end of November with Louise from the Woolwork podcast, which was very successful and sold out really quickly, which was amazing. And it was a lovely day, and everybody who came got a goodie bag with a pattern and yarn and other bits and bobs. So I've been working on a pattern for the next knitting retreat day, which is at the end of February. And I'll just show you a little sneaky peek. Well, it's going to be this way. That's all I'm going to say about that. But there will be the knit retreat. There will be a special guest in the afternoon. It's not exactly a workshop, but if I say too much, it might give away who it is, and I'm not quite ready to announce that yet. But if you aren't on my mailing list and you like the sound of a online virtual knit retreat day, get on my mailing list, because I will be emailing them first as a little perk of being on the list about it. So you can do that in my profile. There is a link, or if you're watching this later on the replay, I'll put it down there in the description. It was really a lovely day last time. So, and I've also got some workshops coming up. So all the sort of talk about using video calls and Zoom and Skype and things. I was asking people earlier this week on Instagram about whether they've experienced Zoom fatigue, and whether they also use video calls a lot with their work, and does that put them off doing anything more of a fun kind of Zoom thing, anything knitting related or otherwise, in their spare time, in the days off or at the weekends. And I think there was a consensus that if you have a job where you're on a video call all the time, that it's not really fun to do that then for a knitting event or other kind of leisure activity. So I'd been kind of investigating the idea of Zoom fatigue and wondering if there were some ways to alleviate that, or to help people if you are taking part in a Zoom call, whether it's for your work or a kind of more fun one. So actually, if you Google Zoom fatigue, you'll get quite a lot of information and posts about it. It does seem to be something that people have written a lot about. But I thought I would share with you some tips that I have, things that I've actually tried that have been quite useful. So the first one is that to do with the video element of it. So, I think if I was hosting, well, I have hosted online workshops, and if somebody said to me, look, I'm really uncomfortable with having my video on, or would it be okay if I switched it off every so often and then came back on, that would be absolutely fine with me. And obviously that doesn't work for everybody in a work situation, but if you're doing an online workshop, I would say just check with the person whether that's okay, to do that, because I think we've got into this mindset where we think everything has to be done through a Zoom call, or rather than just actually phoning people or always having the video on. Maybe it could just be an audio thing. And related to that one is something I've tried before, which is, I don't know if you can do this on other platforms, but on Zoom, you can turn off the self view. So if you don't like seeing yourself there on the screen, you can actually, there's a function there where you can turn that off. So you can still see everybody else, but you don't see yourself, which is quite handy, because I could find it quite distracting. I think it's a sort of human trait that your eye is drawn to your own face, but you can turn that off, which is good to know. And then the other tip that I have seen is that that apparently it is easier to concentrate, and it's less kind of draining on your concentration if you have it on the speaker view rather than the gallery view. So although it's nice to see everybody, if you do it on the speaker view, there's not so much information to take in, you're just concentrating on that one person. So I haven't tried that one, but I did think that was quite interesting. I do like to be able to see everybody, but I can see that would lessen the distraction and lessen it just help you concentrate if you just have it on the speaker view. Oh, there's Lynn saying, yeah, you can turn off the self view, which I just find that really handy. And actually my daughter, who's not keen on doing Zoom, but some of her classes are on Zoom, we quite often do that with her because she doesn't like to see herself on the screen. And then of course there's other things like taking little breaks. So just having a physical break and walking around, and also taking a visual break. And one advice that I saw, well actually there's two things. One thing said apparently when you're watching a screen you don't blink as much as you do normally. So to try blinking a bit more. I mean, you might want to kind of turn away if you're on camera before you start blinking crazily. But that's supposed to help with your eyes. And the other thing was called 20-20-20. So every 20 minutes, look away from the screen, find something about 20 feet away, and focus on it for 20 seconds, and then come back. And I guess the thinking behind that is that when you're looking at a screen, it's quite up close, isn't it? So you maybe want to just give your eyes a little rest from that and focus on something further away. So every 20 minutes, find something 20 feet away and focus on it for 20 seconds and then come back. And I haven't tried that one, but it sounds quite good and makes sense to me. I suppose it's just remembering to do that, but at least if you did it every time you finished a call or something, it would be helpful than not doing it at all. And then, another one, this is one that I've found is very true and I have to stop doing, is to avoid multitasking when you're on a Zoom call. Because it's very tempting if you're not, if what's being discussed or whatever doesn't directly involve you, it's very tempting to sort of start looking at other stuff on your computer screen or stuff on your phone, and actually or maybe there's the temptation to get on with something else. So apparently that makes you less productive because you're swapping from one thing to the other and you're not really concentrating, and also the process of having to switch in your head between that Zoom meeting and the other thing means you're less effective and less productive. But it is very tempting to do that, isn't it? That's quite hard, I think, to not do that. But yes, and then the last thing is back to doing the mini breaks. So this was on a blog post that I read. It was for teachers, but I thought this was quite fun. Was to every so often take a 60-second dance party. So that would mean, getting some music on your phone or whatever and just having a little boogie around your office, home office, or your living room, and just de-stress. I guess you maybe have to line up the right tune so that you can be looking forward to your next 60-second dance party. But I quite like that idea. Maybe I'll try that next time I do an online workshop or anything. But if you are finding that you've got Zoom fatigue and you do want to take part in something fun, a fun online workshop, don't be afraid to ask the person who's hosting it if it's okay to do some of these things. Turn your camera off for some of it, or take little breaks. If I disappear for 5 minutes, it's just because I'm taking a little break from the screen. I'm pretty sure that they will be absolutely fine with that. So hopefully some of those things help. I will put a post on my Instagram grid tomorrow just with some bullet points there of some of the main ones, but I think some of that is quite useful. So if you are interested in online knitting workshops at all, or the online day retreat I was talking about, the best way to find out about that is by signing up to my mailing list. The link is in my profile if you're watching on Instagram, or if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube later, I'll put it down there in the description or the comments. And I will catch up with you next Thursday. Don't forget to look out for the subtitle outtakes. I edit this video afterwards and I add subtitles, and the subtitler is automatic, but it quite often makes quite Freudian slips, and I take screenshots and share them in my Instagram stories, which is quite funny. So if you're in need of a laugh later on today, look out for those in my Instagram stories. But I'll see you next Thursday. Take care. Bye.